Welcome everyone. I am the Hermit Tarot, and this is our fourth episode of Spirit Talks, the spiritual podcast that literally talks about anything and everything. Before we get too into it, because I made the mistake last time, I don't want to make that mistake again. I do want to acknowledge the traditional landowners of the land that we are filming on today. As I've mentioned before, I live in a very culturally diverse place, so the traditional landowners of this land are the Jabbergai people, and I wish to pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. So today's episode is extra special because we do have a guest. I am here on a Zoom call with my brother, Alex. So I don't know how you want to be called because you're already known to this audience one way or another. So as long as you're not too nervous, I'll let you introduce yourself. Tell us what you do.
My name is Alex. I'm your brother. I make music and stuff, and I edit videos for you and a YouTube channel that I am running with Miss Emily Gourmet. Yeah. A couple exciting, cool things.
Very creative person, jack of all trades at the moment.
Yeah, pretty busy, pretty good.
So how do you want this crew to call you? Like, 'cause I call you Mr. Alex, obviously, but I don't want to start that trend because that's obviously just little jokes.
No, I don't know. They can call me. They can call me Alex, or they can call me ZD, Xander Digital, my stage name. But yes. Alex, if I'm fine with Alex.
Is Mr. Digital off the cards?
Mr. Digital. No. Nothing off the cards.
Okay. I just had to check.
Yeah.
Anyway, Alex, you're here today because the main reason.
We're small in trouble.
I know, I always freak myself out when I say it like that. It's so serious. The main reason that I wanted Alex to be here is because Alex and I have the most interesting conversations, like of random spiritual, scientific, anything from quantum physics to Joe Dispenza to like theories within spirituality, religion, cultural, everything in between. Alex and I can almost talk about everything and anything. And I really wanted you on this podcast for this topic because it's something that we've been talking about a lot lately. So I do want to introduce the topic to the viewers. We are going to be covering manifestation and surrendering. So surrendering, holy heck, Mr. Alex, we got a lot of questions to answer about surrendering. So before we get too into our own experiences, I do want to read through some of the questions that people, viewers, subscribers, listeners have sent through via the website. If you want to send a question through, you can do so via thehermittarotshop.com. Alex will put a little thing here to show you how to do that in post-production, and I'll just make sure I put a link in for the Spotify listeners. So there's going to be a lot of questions around surrendering here. So I do want to try to filter them through. I'm looking at a spreadsheet, Alex, of like 30 questions, and you know what it's like too. They're not just short, so we won't put all of them in. I'll just see if we can find some that relate specifically to this topic. Okay, this is cool. This is literally, okay, so this was sent through by Phoebe. I'll share my screen with you so you can see what I'm looking at here. Oh, it's going to be a pain. It won't let me show you. I'm going to have to read it to you.
That's all right.
So this question was sent in by Phoebe. It's very much on topic, guides to manifesting and how to see and create the changes in your life. Basically anything to do with manifestation. I feel like that's what our whole topic is about. So maybe just like a quick answer before we get into it deeply.
Jeez. I guess, with manifestation, to quickly delve into it, it's all about accepting and being happy with where you are, and like everything on top of it is just like a plus. You have to have that mindset, and I feel like for me anyway, definitely that's what I try to do. And Joe Dispenza talks about like elevated emotions, and positive elevated emotions mixed with a clear intention, you know? Yeah, that would be manifesting to me, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. And just keeping it simple by like sticking to that, not making it too complicated as well.
And the surrendering part, I think, is when it doesn't happen right away, not to get down in the dumps and get sad, because that's the biggest way to kill manifestation, you know? Just being grateful and just knowing that you deserve that, but letting it come to you naturally.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. So the next question we have here, I'm literally just agreeing with everything that you're saying, because that's literally what I would say as well. The next question is, somebody suggested that we do a topic on letting go, which I consider to be very similar to surrendering. Bless that cockatoo. Very similar to surrendering. But this person's asking about letting go of people in particular, which I know like we've both had to do very recently. What would you suggest around that, or what words of wisdom would you offer?
Interesting. Letting go of people is probably, it's a necessity, and everyone comes across it in their life. And I think it's a necessary skill, just as to have like a positive life and a manifesting life of everything that you want, filled with joy. It also comes with letting go of people, and you have to let go of people that just, you know, consume energy in your life and just aren't there for the right reasons. And you gotta, and if you keep onto those people, then you're just as good as the company you keep, and it's just a battery drainer. Like, you know, you can't, there's only X amount of things that you can create and X amount of good things that can happen when you're around people that should be not in your life, you know? And I think that, yeah, like I've had to let go of like friends, mates, people, and yeah, like I wasn't invited to like people's weddings and stuff, like, you know, close mates, and I didn't, it did like, you know, take its toll on me a little bit, but I tried to like, you know, okay, like that's as far as the friendship sort of goes, like, you know, not letting it affect you as much, but also like having time to feel sad and fully let go. Because if you just pretend like it doesn't affect you, then, you know, you'll find that you always will be attached to that person because you haven't fully gone through the grieving process of letting them go and getting them out of your life.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think I've told you this, but it's no secret. Like I tell everybody this now, but it was a private process for a long time. What I like to do like every 6 to 12 months is just like reflect and journal and just think about like the people in my life. And at first it was always like friends, because I was just noticing that certain relationships weren't fulfilling as they used to be. And then the process later, once I became less attached to this idea of family, I like helped to spread it to like all connections. And I think it's healthy to do that, because it just helps you process some of those things that you push aside because of labels, like, you know, parents or I don't know, cousins or aunties. Holy heck. So it's always good, in my opinion, to do that little check, that little relationship check-in, and see whether that is something that's genuinely fulfilling you, because that person could be taking up space. That's why we let go, because they could be taking up space of someone who is worthy of coming in. And if they're going to be there just sucking the energy out of you, why keep them there in the first place? So, but I think it's so important, like you were saying, to give yourself that space to grieve. Even though they haven't passed, you have let them go, and it's like actually needing to grieve somebody's presence in your life, however good or bad or negative or positive their impact was. So important. And I think that's also what Anne has said over here in her question. She's saying, what do you do when you can't let go of someone, no matter what, no matter how hard you try? You've only had a brief conversation with this person and it's been 2 years. I feel like, Mr. Alex, you're going to have strong opinions around this.
I don't know, it's hard not to judge, because the first thing I'll say is that no one knows like what that connection is like except for you, you know? So, you know, seeking external sort of advice, you know, take everything with a grain of salt, you know? Because no one knows what you're feeling, no one knows what you're thinking, or how, like, you know, that how much that person does mean to you, you know? But the sounds of it, it's weird, because it's like just I shouldn't use that word weird, it's different, because it's just like are they saying that it's just a, like they had a conversation and that's all that it was, and they can't stop thinking about them.
Yeah, just a conversation. And it's been 2 years, so it must have been a very strong pull. We kind of talked about this in my last episode with twin flames, how it can be very minuscule interaction. But I mean, at that point, I don't know, for me, I'm mixed on this subject, because for a long time, before I was like more aware of energy and how impactful people's vibrations can be, I always thought of these concepts as crazy and just weird, and like, well, how could you do that? And that's not logical. And so when I did become more aware of how impactful somebody's vibration can be on your personal energy, it did sort of make me more like aware. But then I had to come back with my logic and go, yes, okay, but if that's not making you happy, like, you still have to try to push yourself to focus on other things, you know? So I mean, I think you can respect the fact that whoever the heck that person was, they clearly had a very profound impact on your life, but you shouldn't take that one instance as something that you have to hold on to, so that it's taking space of the things that you're currently experiencing and stopping you from absorbing those present moments. Because who knows, there could be somebody else just as impactful standing right in front of you on the train, on the bus, in front of that cafe line, and you're not able to pick up on their energy because you're still clinging to this person from 2 years ago. So
I definitely agree with that. Like, you shouldn't, like, really be conscious of how you feel, but like, don't glorify it so much, you know, those sort of instances, because then, like, you could miss out on other experiences, other people, like, you know. And sometimes we see that, like, we'll glorify a situation or something so much that, you know, we miss the side of what's in front of us, you know. And everything does happen for a reason, and you got to really look at the signs. What's the universe trying to tell you? Why did you meet that person? What conversations were exchanged? Like, you know. And then and especially, I think you thought I was going to have like a lot more harsher, like, but you forget that I've been editing like your podcast and stuff, like that Twin Flames. It was the last episode. It was blowing my mind, like, you know, like, and I was watching it, like all these podcasts that I've edited from you. It's had like a hectic effect on me, like, you know, because I'll be editing and I'll just be like, geez, like, you know, and I've even wrote down some things, like, you know, like in this book and stuff, like, like, and just applying some of that to my life as well, like, you know, just the verbatim, like the dark night of the soul and stuff, and it's helped me, you know, with my partner, talking to her and stuff, and it's almost like closure, because you figure out why things happened and how that had like added to your character
level up like level 7
storyline, adds to the storyline, and attributes, you know.
And I think especially because you're like such a main character, like whenever you experience something, you really put yourself in it. So I can only imagine like you're editing these podcasts, like, what the heck?
I was like, oh my God. Oh yeah. No, but yeah, so it's given me that like perspective and understanding that like I don't just throw people's experiences out the window because like they've met someone for the first time now. I'm like, oh, well, like there is a slight chance that could be a twin flame and you've had a hectic experience, and, you know, and be conscious of how you feel, because that could be it.
Yeah.
But it also couldn't be.
Yeah, well, that's the thing as well. And I think that's where people get so tied up, is in that labeling process, where you just want answers and the answer is never black and white. So at what point do you go, okay, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but if it is, or even if it isn't, at least I'm going to take this and use it to build my character, level up. So it's very hard to get to that point. And manifestation and surrendering with manifestation, I feel, as like an easier way of explaining a concept that big, because letting go of a connection like that can be seen as something almost impossible for a lot of people who feel like they're right in the thick of it, where I feel if we start small here with manifestation, because sometimes it can be very simple and then sometimes what you're manifesting is huge. So I feel like we'll be able to answer those questions around surrendering people like that in this podcast as well.
Yeah, I think it'd be good. And like, yeah, covering things like my manifestation and stuff. Like I've noticed that everything in my life has just eventually gone well because I've surrendered, but but that being accompanied with like not having many intentions is like things go well, but it's just sort of like all over the place, Yeah. And then, but honing that in, like that's when it starts getting exciting, and you can feel things chopping and changing around you, and it's
Yes. I think without further ado, let's get into the manifestation now. So I just need to quickly say thank you to everybody who sent in a question. I really appreciate all of your feedback, and I do my best to read through every question, but I try to make them fit in with the podcast theme. So there were questions that I thought weren't necessarily appropriate for this podcast, but that doesn't mean that they won't get answered in future podcasts as well. So, to get back onto manifestation specifically, the first question that I really wanted to ask you, Mr. Alex, Mr. Digital, is if you can remember, because I feel like you're someone where maybe subconsciously you'd been doing this for like most of your life, but if you can remember, when/how did you learn about manifesting?
Yeah, well, I first heard about it when I met my partner, Abby, and her family. So what was so funny is that if, like, and it goes back to like everything happens for a reason. If these concepts were thrown at me before that, I would have just said like I don't agree with that, and I would have said it real smart-assly, It's a load of crap, but yeah, when I met my partner, she sort of softened me to the idea, and she's such a like when I told her that like I like making music, like Standout Digital, this is my stage name, here's the song. She's such like, well, if you like it that much, just do it. And like no one's really said that to me in my life, and no one's really just been like, yeah, well, do it, like just keep going, see how you go, like And I've just been like, oh, maybe I will, and see what happens, and then talking about believing in yourself and believing in the outcome that you want. And then when I met her parents, it just like went from that. She softened me up to the idea. And then when I met her parents, they're the most incredible people. And they're just like, it was like 1,000 times more. But because I was softened up to it, I was just like, okay, geez, like, righto. And then that's the first time I heard about it. And that was about four years ago, I reckon.
Yeah, wow.
4 years ago, yeah. And they were talking about Joe Dispenza, The Secret, all that stuff. And at the same time, like I wasn't too... It was at the point where I was like, okay, I'll listen. But it didn't really get all the way in, until I really started focusing more on music and the things that I loved and that I wanted to achieve,
Yeah.
But like everyone else was sort of saying like, oh, I think you've been doing it your whole life and you just haven't realised. And like we mentioned earlier, like briefly, it's because like I've always sort of just been positive and happy with wherever I am, and I'm really easily like happy with life. Like I'm just easy going, and I've just gone with the flow. Something changes, I'm like, oh, like oh well, I guess this is life now, like And so I've just been real chill, real happy, just loved all the people around me. And I feel like everything has just gone my way, and now that it's honed though and has a direction, it finds it's sort of honed in more,
Yeah. 100%. Do you think that your nature has a lot to do with your ability to manifest? Because you say, I know you're an easygoing person. I think the only time that you really arc up is when something really conflicts with your values, your ethics, your morals. Then you become otherwise you're so easygoing, laid back, you go with the flow.
Yeah, and I feel like that's, in order to get to this place that I am now, where I'm focusing intention and stuff on the things that I want, or that I feel my spirit wants, to get here I've had to let people go, and you can't be easygoing and let people out of your life. you have to sort of arc up, and you have to be strong with what you value, who you are, and things like that, and have a strong sense of who you are, you know. And I feel like that's when I started to progress to where I am now with all this. And hardships and character progression.
Yes.
To get here, you know. Yeah.
I think for me personally, I would have learned about manifesting in a song lyric probably.
Wow.
Like, I think I would have heard manifest through like songs that, like, you know, because I feel like a lot of artists mention it, but I don't think I ever grasped the concept until like I did hit like rock bottom, I feel like back in New Zealand probably. And then at that point, you know, you're so desperate for a way out. I was like, well, how can I do this? Like, I was going back to religion. I was thinking of being Buddhist. Like, I was like, okay, like, obviously I'm going to hustle and do what I need to physically get out of this. But I was so low that I could feel that my spirit was craving, like, nourishment. I was so, like, deep into, like, being a shell of who I was that I was like, okay, so how do I go from here to the life that I want? And then like it was through songs that I started hearing about people manifest, or, you know, close your eyes, manifest your dreams. Like, just so many people talk about these things like willy-nilly, where we're almost like desensitized from how impactful it can be.
Yeah.
And then I think I actually looked into it, and while I was physically trying to do the best I could to get out of that situation, I was also trying to like manifest and journal and write what I envision my life to be. And from that point to now, like, I've always had like a plan, or like some sort of like journaled idea of like how I want my success to look, whether that's success in money, in career, in love, in family, friendships.
And that's that intention.
Yeah, so I make sure that intention is clear. I make sure I'm like, me and the universe are on the same page. Like, this is what we're creating. Don't bring me anything less than this. And then I do my best to do what I can to fulfill my side, and hope that with my high vibrations, the universe has the rest. So I think that's how I like properly learnt and did it. And it's raining now, so this is where I need to apologize to people listening in case there's bad audio in the background. We do our best, don't we, Mr. Digital, to make the audio sound
what
better.
we got. I just
We do our
think
best.
it's very interesting what you said with the music. Like, that's when you heard it. For me, it was like I never ever heard it. I never heard it in songs until I was desensitized. I was like, okay, this exists, and then I started noticing it in like all the songs and all the charts, and I was just like, what? And even old songs, I was just like, that was there the whole time, you know? But like, it's crazy how much of a filter, or like how much your perception changes once you're desensitized to a topic, like manifestation. I was like, oh, okay. Listening to a song, I'm like, oh my God, that was in there? Like, what? Like, what the hell? Like, you know, so I thought that was interesting as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so true. I do want to ask you now, what was a standout thing? It's like something very specific that you can't deny that you have manifested, a standout instance of you manifesting.
I think at the moment, my partner definitely. Like, yeah, I just think about how perfect she is for me, and like, yeah, we're very much, because you know, like everyone, you know, you gotta slay a couple of dragons to get to the princess, you know. Yeah. I shouldn't be saying that. No, yeah, but what I'm saying is that, you know, it's like stepping stones, you know. My exes didn't really have that sort of. I couldn't talk to them the way I talk to Ab, you know. I couldn't rely on them, you know.
Yes.
Abby's such the most understanding,
Sorry, that's
understanding, reliable, and like, you find the perfect person that's for you, you know? And I remember thinking like, watching movies and stuff like How I Met Your Mother, and like how perfect this person was in the end for Ted. Like, you're like, geez, like, I wonder if I'll ever have someone like that in my life. And the more that you analyze or appreciate, I've really realized how perfect we actually are together. Especially that since I've been out of the Navy and living with her all the time, I was just like, because I'm sort of a real spiritual person, and I've like, especially now.
Yes.
After this podcast, no. But I've always had that like grander scheme of things sort of view and manifestation and like all that running in my head, and these podcasts have only helped me further develop that and assign the actual happenings of, like, dark nights of the soul and stuff like that. But like I'm sort of the spiritual side, and Abs is like my partner is very much like hooked into this world. Like she's very like, okay, we need to sort this out, like, and like everything runs smoothly in the materialistic world when she's around, and I've always struggled with that. Like, I've always struggled with being organized or like, getting things done like that. But like, so she helps me with that regards, and I help her with the spiritual side. And we are constantly trying to redevelop and talk about how she feels and like what's going on, why things have happened. And I feel like that's definitely something that's, when I met her, that fell perfectly right into place. Like, as well as being disgraced with, I guess, like employment opportunities. I think that's the biggest one, and when I talk about in life, like, how just go with the flow, I mean that in all the sense. Like, before I graduated high school, I had absolutely no idea with what I was going to do. Like, didn't know what I was like, what I fully liked and what I could throw 100% of my attention into, and like, had a hobby that I could see going further than just a hobby, like, So I always told Mum, like, okay, if I don't know what I'm doing, I'll join the Navy.
It was like the last resort.
And so, year 12 happened and I didn't know what else to do, so ended up joining the Navy, and everything just sort of fell into place. But I've always had a job, I've always been making money, and I've always, started building ever since I left school, weirdly.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've never worried about employment, and I think that's why, everything just sort of fell into place. But I've always been happy with where I'm at. And I'll just share one more experience when I was in the Navy, and probably one of the most, you got to look out for the signs when things are like telling you that you're going in the right direction. And if it feels like things aren't happening your way, that's when you need to be stubborn and be like, no, everything's going good. Like, I'm still got my intention. Like, I'm going to do this, like, and like one of those standout cases was when I was on HMAS Paluma in the middle of the ocean, and I just started, because I have to be up on watch for about 4 hours every night. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to manifest what I want every night. So I would look out at the ocean, I would manifest and just be thinking and feeling the things that I wanted to do, where I am right now, pretty much, just thinking and feeling it. And then all of a sudden, right as I was probably at the peak, and I was like, it's like I was feeling like I was actually here where I am now, connecting to that future self. Right at that peak experience, a shooting star in the middle of the sky, right where I was staring in the sky, just went, and I was just like, oh my God.
And that's not a sign, I don't know what it is.
At first, and I think that's a standout, like, event, but like at first I was just like, I didn't really feel it, and I was just like, hang on, what was I thinking? I was like, oh my God, like, and then I just started saying, thank you, universe, for such an obvious sign that clearly I'm in the right place. And even though I'm not where I want to be and where I was imagining, I'm in the right place of where I need to be right now to get there. And what about you?
Well, I did want to just explain to people like that there are so many different videos and templates and like blogs, and there's so many different ways that people say like you can manifest. Like there's so many different people nowadays, whether it's magazines, websites, Instagram models, so many people tell you like how to manifest. This is how I manifested. And I feel like the key process to it is like keeping it simple, and it honestly just starts with those clear intentions that I feel for people like us. I think we're similar in the fact that like our daydreams, like they all forge part of our manifestations. Like for me personally, I have to like visualize myself there, And then to make it something more serious, because I'm always bloody daydreaming, I write it down as well to make sure, like, okay, Spirit, this is what I want to manifest, not that other weird shit that I was daydreaming about.
Not that, my mind just wanders.
Exactly. But I feel like you start, like, in terms of manifesting, I don't mean to be another person who's telling other people how to manifest, but we don't need another one, but it just, like, to help cover it in this episode specifically, it starts with that clear intention of knowing what you want, even if you can't specifically tell Spirit, like, oh, this is the exact person, this is their name, their date of birth. Like, you can't know those things
that much into detail. Like, I think that's a bit much.
This is their blood type. No. You can't know those things, but, like, you have to imagine, I feel, like, what it would be like to live in that reality. You have to imagine how it would make you feel and how your vibration would be raised. I feel like that's something that not a lot of people talk about, and I think that's why daydreaming is so helpful, because when you do find yourself, like, lost in your thoughts about, like, what you want your life to be, it genuinely, if it's a good daydream, you genuinely feel better. Like, your serotonin levels are up, your endorphins are up, you feel good, your vibration's up. And I feel like that is a massive step in actually making those things more achievable, because your body thinks you already live in it. Your body's like, we're here, we out.
And with that being said, is you really have to know yourself. It's the other half. To know what you love, and that's going to help with those elevated emotions that go with that clear intention. You can have a clear intention. So right now, if I say, I want to be a horse rider, just for the sake of it, and I want to prove everyone that manifestation is real, but I don't like horse riding and I hate horses. It's not going to happen, like, you know. So you have to listen to what your spirit wants, what you actually love, and how much that's going to fuel that manifestation, you know, how much, because that really is the fuel. It's marrying that clear intention with that elevated emotion, you know.
Yes. Oh, love it. And I guess I should... He caught that. Whoa.
Yeah, dropping gems.
I did want to share a few manifestation stories as well. I feel like this is going to take up most of the podcast, but that's okay. The main one, honestly, that I forgot about until, like, we set this up. Officially, we set the date, and I was like, okay, like, crap, I gotta actually, like, think of my stories now. Make sure that I'm ready to go. Don't want to be on the spot. I'm pretty good at ad-libbing, but still. This is a story that I didn't even realize was a manifestation until last night. I was really thinking about it, and I am constantly pinching myself about the life that I live now, because this life was something that I had been manifesting, like, way back then, like I was briefly talking about before, when I hit rock bottom. And when I talk about that time in my life, like, I wasn't technically, like, homeless. I'm not talking about that kind of rock bottom, but it was rock bottom in the sense of the life that I was living did not align with who I was as a person. It did not make me happy. It put me into, like, a deep, deep depression. It made me very anxious. It changed me physically as a human to the point where I didn't physically, like, recognize who I was anymore. And it changed so much about me to the point where I had to fight hard to start rebuilding again. It was like the longest, most drawn out tower moment, as we call it in tarot. A tower moment is where the universe will throw a lightning bolt your way, and that lightning bolt strikes everything in your life that is illusionary, that you've been clinging to, all the attachments that you've been building. The idea is that lightning bolt can only destroy things that aren't built on firm foundations. And for me, that was a tower moment that was like 3 years in the making.
Oh my God.
During that painful process of realizing that everything I'd built my life on was a lie, I had to start reimagining who I wanted to be, how I wanted to be, how I was going to make my money, because I was not financially independent at that time, how I wanted to thrive, not just survive. I was so sick of surviving at that point. I was like, no, how will I thrive? What will I look like? Who will I be with? What lifestyle will I lead? Like, this version of Lorraine isn't happy. Maybe Lorraine loves to be in nature. Maybe Lorraine would do more bushwalks, you know? Like, everything that I see now, this house, Kirk, my family, the way that our family is now, it was everything that I had manifested back then. even coming down to my relationship with dad, because at that stage it was on the rocks. And I've talked about family on this podcast before because it's something that a lot of people can relate to. You know, family is something we're born with. Doesn't mean the relationships are made perfect from the get-go.
Yeah.
So you have to work hard at those relationships. But that was something major that was 3 years in the making. And now I'm hitting the 3rd year anniversary this July since I actually like came back and started building my life here in Australia.
Wow.
So it's been a 6-year process of like annihilation and creation, and I'm literally living my dream life because I had those positive thoughts, and that was the only thing getting me through that as well. That was the only reason I was waking up in the morning and like choosing to be alive every day, because I thought, no, I'm too young to give up. Like there's a way out of this, and if I can visualize it, like it's going to take me a while, but I can do it. So so crazy.
Wow, that's so cool. A little bit off topic, but like this, so people know, like it was crazy. So you and me growing up, we've been sort of like the closest, you know, and like, you know, like you've always talked to me about guy problems and the people at school and stuff. And like, yeah, I remember all that. I remember all that. I had to sit there listen for gossip. And then, but it was so weird because when you left school, you were in Townsville, and then you went to New Zealand, and you were gone for, you know, you were gone for ages. And I told people, like, I forgot that I had an older sister. Like, you know, there's like an instinct in your head that just knows that, like, I have an older sister, like, you know, and like it's comforting and it's warm, like, you know. And then I started losing that, and then only just recently, you know, like I remember when you came back and I was just like, oh, what the hell? And we started hanging out again and everything was like, everything was cool. I was just like, hey, look out, like what's going on? This is weird, like, you know, weird, but like, oh my God, like at the same time I was real happy, like, you know.
Yeah, I think we both forgot how well we click too.
Yeah, like,
Even me, I forgot. I was like, oh, Alex is like a grown-ass man now. What are we going to have in common next minute?
Still got small boy sense.
No, you've grown.
Yeah.
But like the essence of that person or the people that we were, I feel like we were purer then too. Like life just kind of changed us in the best of ways, and then we came back to who we were at our core.
Yeah, definitely, I reckon. Yeah.
And I think the only other manifestation story that I did really want to share, because it falls more in line with like a structure, whereas the other stories I feel are more about really visualizing and grinding and surrendering and accepting when things are letting go. I feel like this one is shorter in context, and it may be able to like fall more in line with what you read in blog posts. This is the story of how I manifested my car, Regina, my beautiful little green beetle. Green machine. Literally, this is only a 6-month manifestation story compared to 6 years, so it's a bit more digestible, it's a bit more consumable, it's a bit more achievable, let's say. Like, you don't have to worry about waiting 6 years. Like, manifestation can happen like that, as long as you're in tune.
Definitely.
Yeah. So with my car, to put this into context, so this is after my lowest moment of my life. I'd started rebuilding my life. I started losing a lot of weight, getting healthier in general. My focus was always on being more like myself, my real self. So losing weight was a part of that, but it was more about coming closer to that lifestyle that I dreamed about. So when it came to transportation at the time, I was catching sun buses to work, and I literally worked at a homelessness shelter as well. So you can imagine me on the public bus going to work at the homelessness shelter, seeing clients on the bus as well, and being like,
starting that appointment early.
Yeah, start that appointment early, did the referrals and everything in the bus. And it wasn't that I was embarrassed, because I was like, maybe it just makes me more relatable. Like, I had no shame in that, but it was like, it definitely didn't align with the vision that I had seen myself. So what had happened at first, I managed to save my first $2,000 because I was living at mum's at the time. And I used that money to get El Guapo, which is a car that Alex currently has now. Faithful, reliable, lovable El Guapo is like a Toyota Avalon sedan, very reliable. That car was driven, I think the original owner that I bought it from purchased it in Canberra, Alex. Drove it all the way up from Canberra.
I didn't know.
And for 3 months, because he was a Korean tourist. He drove it up from Canberra. His 3-month tourist visa ran out, and he ended up leaving the car with the mechanics here in Cairns. So I ended up seeing the ad. The mechanics were like, I just need to get rid of it. We'll sell it to you for $1,600. And I was like, okay, yes, I'll take it. Took it for a test drive and fell in love. I was like, okay, this is the car. And then, you know, as I started to make more money, I got a promotion through work. I started to really focus on what was making me happy. And I started to realize that there were things in my life, not the car, but my home life, that weren't making me happy. It was time for me to leave the nest again and give mum her space back and to get my space back. But in order to do that, I needed something more reliable that was going to be able to help me at that point in my life. Because at that point, Sinead and I had both moved out together. Sinead is my sister, by the way, everybody, following at home. And that side of town is a side that would have preyed on El Guapo like nothing else.
Yeah.
Everyone in that side of town would know how to break into a car like El Guapo.
And everyone knows how to break into a Toyota Avalon in that area of
Yes.
town.
El Guapo would not have lasted long. So initially, the plan was, okay, I'm going to keep El Guapo for 6 months and use it until it dies. And to this day, it hasn't died, but
It's still kicking. I'm looking
It's
at it
still
right
kicking.
now. It's still kicking.
yes, literally, still kicking. But that was the plan. I'm just gonna, and hopefully it doesn't get stolen in the meantime. So while this plan was in my mind, it wasn't at the forefront. It wasn't something that I was obsessing over. I didn't need a new car. I was so happy with El Guapo and with being independent in that house. I didn't need another vehicle. But I started visioning myself driving this SUV, and it fell in line with the lifestyle that I wanted. But I didn't know if it actually fell in line with my bank budget. So I've just, I put it out to the universe. And at that point I was working late night shifts, put it out to the universe at night, in between clients and working and on my breaks. I would scroll through Hyundai and look at pictures of this car. And they have a car builder little thing that you can do on their website where you make your dream car. And every night, oh my days, without fault, I would open Hyundai.com.au and build my dream Hyundai Kona down to the tinted windows, the color of the seatbelts, the size of the wheels, everything. And I was visualizing myself driving it, and then I'd go back into El Guapo, and it wasn't that I felt bad being in that car, but I was wow, I think I could do this. Maybe I should just book in a test drive. Let's just book in a test drive. Nothing, it's not like I'm going to lose anything. I've still got a car. And so I had a day off one day, and I did it. I just called them, and they said, yeah, you come in at any time. We've got heaps of Konas. They're very common. And I was like, oh, not the Kona I want. But anyway, I went in, test drive the car, and immediately, the salesman that I had was lovely, very kind, but you could tell he was looking at me going, sweets, this is way out of your budget. You come in here with your Converse, your dungarees, you can't afford a car like this. And he was so nice about it. He genuinely, we went through the website together, priced it all up, I built my dream car, and he was like, these cars, they're factory built. So if you make one, it's going to take 3 months to come from the factory in Korea and get here. And I was just like, what? Just do it. And literally, in my mind, I was like, let's do it. Let's do it. Have you ever ordered one before? And he's like, no, I've never. And I was like, what? He's like, I've never even seen the color of this paint in person. And I was like, really? How long have you been working here? And he was like, I've worked here for 5 years. I've never seen this car in person. And I was just like, okay, well, listen, I'm keen if you are. And he's like, yeah, what have we got to lose? So I think his attitude was helpful. But I obviously did meet resistance later down the track. It wasn't all smooth sailing. I was very easygoing about the whole thing. I just went into it and was like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I don't need this. I've got El Guapo. I'm saving my money. I've done what I could. You know, there's no way that I could just magically get an extra 10 grand a year. Like, I'm just going to have to deal with the salary that I have and see if I can afford this car. And so what happened initially, I went for the loan with the dealership, and the dealership was very much like, we want you to get this car because we want to see it. Like, we've never even seen this car.
I want to have a look too.
Yeah. They pushed the loan through, took $1,000 deposit from me, and sure enough, sorry, the loan's been declined only because your contract says that you can be fired within 2 weeks, and that's not enough financial stability for us to give you a 5-year loan. And I was like, oh, okay, no worries. Like, it's just not meant to be. That's fair enough. So I didn't think too much of it. And then as I was like ready to leave, like I picked my bag up, like all good. And no worries, thank you so much. She was like, wait, there's a financier upstairs. They're brokers. They're a private company, but they deal with the banks directly. Would you consider talking to them? And I literally had nothing else to do that day. Like, the only reason I got out of bed was to go there. So I was like, sure, let's go. Went upstairs, met the lady. She was very nice, very ambitious. She said, I'm sure we can work something out. You've got enough money. Let's see if we can get behind that or around that contract discrepancy. So it was a process. Like, I gave her all the information. I had to leave that office and I had to surrender the idea of, you know, am I going to get it? Am I not? Because it was no longer in my hands. I had to leave it in her hands and go, if I'm meant to have this, I'm sure that lady's very professional. She comes across as someone who's doing her best. I have to trust that if it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
That's very important, very important.
100%. I accepted the circumstances in reality as they were. I had physically done everything I could when it came down to money, when it came down to the documents to prepare for the loan, when it came down to the people that I was working with. Like, this was my second attempt. They were very professional. There was nothing else that I could do. So I surrendered it. She said she would get back to me in 48 hours. So during that period, I literally went to work, and then it was the weekend. So it wasn't 48 hours. It turned out to be 4 days. But I got a call from her, like dead on Monday morning. And turns out not only did she secure a loan for me, she secured a loan from the best financial company in Australia, Macquarie Leasing, for a rate that was half of what the dealership was offering me. So not only did I get the loan, my repayments were half of what they would have been had I been accepted the first time around. And the term was the same, but there was just all these other little things that made it so much better. Like, I could pay repayments for no fees, you know, just put extra money in if I have it, pay the loan off quicker, don't have to pay extra. And it was secured financing that they could get approved like immediately because they dealt with the broker. So literally went back to the dealership that next week. I had the car bought and ready to come in. The dealership, it happened so fast. The dealership had to find a car for me in the Southern Hemisphere. The only the only place that they had these cars was in the Northern Hemisphere, and they were like, listen, we're either going to have to ship this from Japan or we're going to have to find one that's in the middle of the ocean. So they found one, Alex, that was in the middle of the ocean.
My mind went straight to like them searching with a submarine for a car.
It sounds like a Fast and Furious ad.
Yeah. Literally.
Literally, the car that I have in my driveway now was on a freight barge somewhere between Singapore and Thailand, headed towards, I think it was Perth. And, oh no, of course it would have gone to Sydney. It was headed towards the Sydney, major port in Sydney. And like within 3 weeks, I was picking it up from the dealership instead of 3 months. All because I had...
Ridiculous. I remember it happened real fast, and one day you were just driving around a new car. I was like, what the hell did this happen? I was like, what?
Yes, literally, 100%. So, I mean, there were so many things there that could have stopped me from the beginning. Like, technically speaking, I was doing my financial judgment, like estimate, budget, based on the dealership. And that meant that I would have been scraping by, you know, because their loan rate was double what I ended up with. So the repayments that I would have been making for this car would have put me in a very unfortunate financial position. But I still went, you know what, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I don't need it, I just want it. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. There were so many things. Had I just taken the dealership's word and gone like, oh yeah, you're right, it's a no-go, don't worry, I won't go upstairs. Had I gone with the salesman's advice and gone, yeah, you're right, maybe I'll just go buy more dungarees and Converses, like, you know, like, had I paid attention to all those little mishaps and gone, oh, this is a sign that it's not meant to be, like, it wouldn't have
and if you pivoted off that and you'd be like, oh well,
yeah,
they said no,
better walk out. It's almost like a scale tipping moment in the you know, pivotal moment of how you got that car, like, you know, and it was based 100%. On you still wanting it and going, okay, you know what, I will go that extra bugger around and head upstairs and talk to some more people that I don't know. Like, but if you didn't want it, then you wouldn't have done that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I think what it comes down to in hindsight, which I didn't see until I prepared myself, this plane, it must be 1 o'clock. It is. He flies overhead at 1 to 1:30 every weekend.
JQ
every
157.
It's like raining and visibility is low. He's like, you know what? No, any excuse to use my private license. But no, what I wanted to say was, in hindsight, it comes down to recognizing opportunities as well. I think that you can be so conditioned at times to recognize the failures. When life gives you lemons, you start to think they're sweet. And you go, you know what? Fine. Someone like me is destined to fail. I'm just going to accept this. But in every sense, in every circumstance where life gave me a lemon in that situation, I was also given an opportunity. Either you take the lemon or you take this opportunity and you keep pushing, despite that bitter ego-based feeling of rejection, despite that ego-based feeling of this salesman's judging you based on your appearance and thinks you don't have enough money, despite that ego-based feeling of this loan company will not finance you because you've only been working, or your loan says, you know, your contract could be destroyed in 2 weeks. What do they think of you? Despite that ego-based feeling of you have to wait 48 hours. Can you wait that long? Like, is there anything else you could have done? And despite that ego-based fear or that rejection, I was always given an opportunity there. Oh, if you can just wait 48 hours, if you can just go upstairs, if you can just sit with me a little bit longer and price this up, because I'm actually excited. You know?
Yeah. And I think I took a little note here, and that's what I was like wanting to talk about, is what I feel that you did right is that, like, you had the right type of surrendering. You know, you surrender, okay, like, I've done everything that I can, this person's going to try to get me this loan, you know, and that's the right type of surrendering. And the other times when you're a bit stubborn, and it's where it's good to be stubborn and to get what you want, you know, and not overdo it, and, you know, next thing you know, you're wasting all this energy and it's not going towards actual manifestation, is that you didn't let the materialistic boundaries, you know, of this world hold what you wanted, you know, and I think that's where people get limited in, like, on how they can get things achieved and you know, brought to them, you know, by the universe, is that there's so many things going on right now, and to have just to know that there's that many things that can chop and change, you know, and always have those options available in your head when you're trying to manifest something, always helps, you know, and to not be confined by those materialistic boundaries and saying those things that, you know, like, oh, like, can I even get this loan? Like, oh, is it going to happen? And to be plagued with that, you know, every time you think about it, and then you find that you're not even thinking about how the car feels, you're thinking about how you can't have it. And and I feel like it was good that visualization would have helped with that website, you know, going on there and like, you know, creating the car and, like, you know, how you wanted it to be and how you saw it, you know. I think that all helps, you know, definitely.
I think the only thing that I really wanted to add to that was that up until that moment, up until that moment, no, I can't serious now. Oh my god. point in time. Bypass that word altogether.
What?
Up until that point in time. That's probably why I said moment, because I was thinking of point. Anyway.
Point.
I always thought manifestation was like very hoodoo voodoo, as I like to call it. Like it had to be an energy thing and it required a lot of trust, and you weren't supposed to manifest like material things. But I think like the more that my concept of spirituality broadens, the more I realize like without energy, like material things don't exist. It's that concept of energy is constant, energy is everywhere, and it's our mind, our consciousness, our awareness that forges it into matter, into materials. So that was the first time for me that I had like consciously manifested a material object. And from that point on, Alex, let me tell you, I've been manifesting money every day from that point on. I do. I'm just like, you know what? If I can manifest a car that wasn't even in the Southern Hemisphere, until I brought it here technically, now there's like 4 of them in Cairns, then like, why can't I manifest money? Why can't I manifest material abundance? Up until that point, I was being almost so like humble and shy with my manifestations, and I was like, okay, Spirit, Lord, Jesus, whoever I believed in at the time, I just call it Spirit now. This is what I want: protect my family, look after my loved ones, bring me happiness, and make sure that I have a roof over my head at night. Like I was being very humble.
Yeah, I think we've been conditioned to be like that, because Mum used to always would say grace, and those are the things that you just ask for. You wouldn't be saying grace and be like, and please, can I have a motorbike for Christmas?
And Mum would be like, don't say that.
Don't say that. But to not cling on to materialistic things because of our upbringing,
And I think my whole attitude towards money has changed because of my manifestation, because I'm seeing it now as a material object that technically holds no value until I give it value, and I don't mean to sound ridiculously privileged, but I do want to say that like growing up, I know this is no new news to the people who follow me as the Hermit Tarot. I've talked about it before. Like we didn't have a heck of a lot growing up. We were, and I never really saw us as poor until like certain things would happen, like you've said, in school, when you're surrounded by peers and you're put into a situation where you compare yourself to what other people have, and you go, oh, okay, maybe we're struggling a little bit. Maybe we can't afford all of those things that we need for school, or all of those new uniforms that we need. Maybe my younger siblings are going to get the clothes that I'm wearing, so I got to look after them, And I think that my concept of money before that was always that it was something almost evil, or something that like was associated with greed. And now what I had to do was I had to condition my mind differently to see it as a resource that can be used for good. And it just depends on how the person who has it chooses to share it. And the way that this ties into manifestation personally is that I feel like you have to have a high vibration to attract what you want. And if you are vibing high, if your energy is pure and what you want is money, the main way that I've found myself to get more of it is by making sure that I'm doing good with what I've got. I'm putting it back to the things that enrich my ethics, my values. I'm putting it in places that aren't greed-based or selfishness for the sake of hurting other people based, I see it as a resource now that is something that helps me continue doing what I want to do in life, my purpose, my joy, what makes me keep being me in my most happiest form. I don't see it as this greedy thing that turns people sour and bitter and jaded and resentful. I try to use my resources in a way where, whether it's money or my car or this house or, anything that's tied to a high value in terms of money, I try to use it for good. And keeping that energy high around these thoughts of money and greed, or how resources are based in terms of value, does help you attract more of it, is what I feel.
Yeah, I've definitely been starting to do that as well, and it's exciting, when you really put your money where, like, what you actually want to be doing with it. And I've bought, software, cameras, computers, and because I've always been conditioned, not to get what you want, and to constantly save and like, you know, not put it where you want to be putting it.
Yeah.
So like, if with me, it was just like, oh, no, you don't go out and buy things that are more expensive than $1,000 if it doesn't look like a car. If it's not in the shape of a car, you don't do any purchases above $1,000, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've just sort of like recently broke down those sort of barriers, and you just like, nah, like, you know, if it's going to benefit me and what I see my future being, that's why I bought this Mac that I'm talking to you on, like, you know, for music, video editing, and, you know, then yeah, it's going to help me progress myself. And another thing is that I enjoy doing it, you know, and people underestimate how valuable it is to feed this spirit with what it does want and need, and when it ties in with your values and your wants and needs, your pure wants and needs.
Yeah, 100%. I did want to ask you now, this is a little bit exciting, and I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing, but what are you currently manifesting, Mr. Alex, and including any challenges or early signs of success that you may have experienced? Doesn't matter how big or small it is.
That's pretty interesting. I reckon because of my past experiences and stuff, and like, you know, when you're manifesting and things don't go the right way right away, I think of my life 2 years into the future or 6 months into the future. I knew that when it was hard to get to, I was just manifesting getting here into Victoria, you know, from Cairns, and getting out of the Navy, because that's another whole topic we could talk about. It's trying to get out of the Navy because, you know, they weren't going to let me out to chase my dreams of music, you know. And it took me a while to move here with Ab's parents on their farm, and I could see the morning waking up, making music, but everything was saying that I couldn't get here, you know. But I was living in the future, knowing that, and I was looking back at myself where I was in that point of time and saying, I know that I'm going to get there, but, you know, it's just not happening right now, you know. And I booked flights and stuff. I was supposed to leave like 3 weeks earlier than what I was supposed to, and I had flights booked. Didn't work out that way. So like where I am now, there are some slight, you know, spanners in the works of things like that have been thrown, but I know now that like I'm still looking into the future and everything is successful then, like, you know. And I'm looking back and it's just like just a small hiccup, like, you know. And what I'm manifesting at the moment is eventually when everything opens up, you know, doing live performances and stuff, and because that was the game plan. I was going to leave the Navy and just do live performances and, you know, do YouTube and get like a cult following and really give it my best shot, you know.
Yeah.
And the first festival that I was supposed to play at, it was a big deal, and it was in Cairns, and that was a week ago, and I couldn't go because of, you know, COVID, you know, and Queensland locked Victoria out, and so I couldn't go. And yeah, and why I talked about that experience and how hard it was to get here first is because I used that experience of being like, I got exactly what I wanted. It just took a bit longer, you know what I mean? So I know there'll be more festivals, and I applied that instantly. I did not go, damn it, like this was supposed to be like, you know, the festival, and then my career was going to take off in music, you know. It's just like, I instantly was just like, it's all right, like, you know, something else is going to come, it's going to be fine. Like, just switched over. I didn't even for a moment think that was going to be the only way I was going to achieve success in the music industry, you know. Like, I know that there's going to be another stepping stone, you know. There's things that I don't know right now, but I know there's things that I don't know right now that are chopping and changing into my favour, you know. So yeah, I guess that's what I'm manifesting. And yeah, what about you? What are you manifesting right now? Hey, I'll put you on the hot seat.
No, I think honestly, for me, manifestation at the moment has really changed based on COVID and my happiness. Like, if you would have asked me earlier, no, if that question had been asked to me like 3 months ago, it would have been very different, because I think 3 months ago, where I was at with my life and with this business and with the Hermit Tarot online, my goals were very much about growth based on this business and things that are measurable by numbers, you know, to put it bluntly. I was very much looking towards those numbers and using those numbers as validation that I was on the right track, whether it was views, whether it was money figures, like in terms of bank accounts, whether it was expenses in terms of accountant meetings. Like, I was looking at it based on numbers and using that to measure whether I was on the right track, and not really paying attention to the other key signs, like my internet going out, like me getting sick, you know, twice in 3 months, like Kirk getting sick, like family issues starting. Like, there were so many hints that I should have, could have, would have been focusing my energy elsewhere. But I think it's because my work is spiritual that I sometimes forget, like, that's not spirituality, Lorraine. Like, you need to honor the other parts that make you you. Like, even though I have a good work ethic, doesn't mean working is going to make me happy all the time, you know?
Yeah.
And I was so used to telling myself, it's okay, like, you go to the gym, you still travel every now and then, you still keep in touch with your mates, like, you still do this. And actually I was like half-icing all of those things. I was going to the gym as an excuse to get straight back to work and not actually taking care of what I was doing to my body in terms of eating, in terms of consumption, with like everything, like the way that I look at consumption is not just food and water, but I look at consumption as like social media, what your body consumes and how you choose to digest that in your essence.
That's what I say, food for thought, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Digest things,
so,
you know, yeah.
Yeah, literally. And I wasn't looking at all of those things deeply and seeing how... Why does this plane always come back when I'm talking?
He's just doing circles around your house.
He's just looking out the window.
He must be filming.
Yeah. Might circle over this house again. But I was looking at it like, as if I just do this, like, I'm happy. I lead a holistic, balanced lifestyle. Like, of course I'm happy. And then it took for like these major changes that have happened recently with Patreon, with Kirk nearly dying, with me getting very, very sick. I didn't even tell you that. I was like super sick last week and the week before.
What?
I know. So when like we hadn't spoken in a while, I wasn't mad because, like, listen, I was healing. I was not on the phone to anybody. I was like really sick to the point where I spent like a whole week in bed. It was that bad. I couldn't even talk for long. Like, I tried to film a reading, a 20-minute reading, and I would run out of breath. Like, I was like, what the hell? My cardio is on point. There's no way, you know, like I know from the gym, there's no way that this is where my fitness is at. I shouldn't feel tired from walking, from talking.
I love that. There's no way.
Yeah. But there were all these signs recently where things were getting more and more serious that were telling me, like, listen, sweets, you got your priorities wrong. You need to turn around and start paying attention to what truly matters. And so where I'm at right now with my manifestation is I'm trying to measure it genuinely based on my energy, not by numbers, not by external validation in any way. I always saw external validation as someone telling you you're doing a good job, but it's also the way that they react to how you're doing your job that can be external validation. You know, like, somebody doesn't have to say you're doing a good job. Maybe they choose to walk away and you're still looking at that and going, okay, that's a sign that I could have done better. You know, I'm not trying to measure it based on what these other external expectations are. I'm literally just trying to manifest happiness at the moment and more balance and harmony. And also, I also want to manifest, I'm putting it out there, this is a bit creepy though, and I know I'll probably get a lot of messages about it, but I'm also trying to manifest someone to travel the world with. I don't care.
Oh, yeah?
Literally, like, I put that out to the universe last week. I was like, Australia's opening up in December to January. I'm going to be fully vaccinated. As long as the person I'm with is fully vaccinated, let's travel the world. So that's what I'm manifesting as well.
Yeah, bloody oath.
Yeah.
I can't wait till me and bloody Ab travel the world as well. I got one shot, I told you. I think I'm getting my next one next week. So. Yeah,
mine is next week as well, because we got ours at the same time.
Oh, yeah, like yeah. You got it. No, you got it like a day before I did, and then you told me. I was like, oh, geez, I'll get mine tomorrow as well.
Yes.
So weird.
But that's where I'm at with it. The other thing that I wanted to ask you, which I feel like we did talk about, it's just got to do with surrendering. Do you think that surrendering is essential when you're manifesting or to manifest successfully?
I reckon sometimes yes and sometimes not. Because certain things perfectly fall into place and other things take a bit of time, you know? And those ones that take a bit of time, which are usually the ones that are most worth it, those you have to prove almost that you deserve it, you know? And half of that is surrendering, you know? To get here, I had to go, it's all right, I'm going to eventually get there, and have a humble stubbornness to me. And like that's, it's hard to understand that unless you've gone through it. The humble stubbornness is knowing that it's going to happen, but just being okay with the process, you know, and going through, you know, where you need to be, you know. And other times things will just perfectly fall into place, you know, and there's not much surrendering needed, you know. It's just like, oh, geez, you sort of look around like everything's sort of gone pretty well, hey?
Yes. Yeah. I think it comes back to your nature though. Hey, like if you're someone who really struggles to just go with the flow and accept a situation for what it is, then maybe surrendering would be a lot more difficult for you. Or maybe you would have to surrender where somebody wouldn't, because they've just accepted it and gone with it and gotten more opportunities.
Definitely. And I feel like for me, because that's the nature of my person, is that I always have gone with the flow, and the trouble for me was setting that intention. So when I do get knocked back, it's okay, like I go with the flow, and that's why I find that, you know, there's things that I've had to work on, but now like I'm like a well-oiled machine, I imagine, you know.
Yes.
Is that like, yeah, just go with the flow, have that clear intention. So that's easy for me because that's how I am, you know. Whereas, you know, Abby is very much, she has to have like success. She has to get it done, like, you know. And and I'm sort of like coaching her, like, no, just, you know, you got to surrender and let things happen. Because an example of this is she, now that we're living on her parents' farm, she wants to buy a horse, right?
Oh, okay. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and she's a good rider. Apparently, I haven't seen her, but like, you know, she wants a horse, and I think this is a really good example of what we work through, and also what other people might need to work on as well in surrendering. Is that it was perfectly laid out for us, and we're like, wow, like you're not surrendering, you know, because buying a horse, right? She has like more than enough money to do so, and you know, she can get whichever one she wants, and every horse that she inquired about was either eventually got sold or was priced way too expensive, and she was working so hard to get this like horse done, you know. I was like, she talked to me and she was like, geez, like I'm actually really stressful, like I'm actually really stressed. Why am I stressed at something that should be so fun? Like, you know, I'm buying a horse, like this should be like, wow, like this is such a good time, it's exciting looking at horses. She started getting exhausted because 24/7 she was just looking and trying to find the right horse, and I was just like, you know, I think you're trying a bit too hard, like, you know, like, because it got to the point where like I'd be making music and we'd be talking, and she was just on her laptop looking and calling up people. At one point, she was on the phone constantly for like probably a whole afternoon, just talking to people, random people, probably about 100 different people, trying to inquire about horses. And I think that's like probably 100 people she called, and in one afternoon. And I think that's a really good sign of like overstepping your stubbornness, and like you got to be humble and know that, like,
needing to surrender,
and just surrender, like, you know,
and accept that maybe the horse that's meant for you isn't currently in your area or in your kind of awareness.
And there's things out there, and I was like telling her, like, just know, like, she was trying to, I broke it down for her. It's like, your spirit knows that it wants and deserves the horse of your dreams, you know, because you're an amazing person, you do deserve that. But you're just trying to rush it too much, you know?
Yeah.
When things in the materialistic world aren't lining up with what your spirit wants and needs and deserves, then you're like, it can be easy to go, oh, why is the universe not giving me what I want? And you start thinking negative and get stressed. It's like, nah, just surrender and enjoy the process, because it is enjoyable.
Yes,
you know?
literally. That's such a good example. I had a funny thought come into my mind though. I'm so sorry. I just thought, imagine if all of these people went to like the pony club or horse club and they were like, did some chick called Abby tell you about your horse?
You're like, hey, someone
Who
just
hasn't Abby called? Like, no hands up.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I think that's a good example of like, you know, where surrendering where it needs to be and how important it is.
Do you think being consciously aware of it has changed your life though, or do you think you could have thrived even without knowing like that you can intentionally manifest?
I think yes, but to an extent. If you have something that's so specific, then you need to know how to surrender. Whereas if you're something like broad, like I want to be comfortable, I want to, you know, live well, and I want to have lovely people in my life, you know, then definitely I think that can be achieved. But when it's something specific and you feel like you're put on this earth for one reason, you know, like me, like, you know, with music, like maybe not one reason, but, you know, I just, you know, you feel so strongly towards it. I feel like it's definitely important to know how to surrender.
Yeah.
And be conscious of it and be like, slow down your ego sometimes. Be like, okay, you know, just because it didn't go my way, the universe has a plan and it's going to be all right, you know, and sort of humbling yourself, you know, being like, oh.
I think so.
You know,
we
get so caught up.
That's the main thing that we've spoken about a lot too, is that like surrendering and letting go is about knowing when the divine plan doesn't align with your ego's plan. And the main way of looking at it is not as I'm being rejected by the universe. It's as you can only consciously see this much. Like your cone of awareness is like so limited. The universe sees everything. Like the energy is everywhere. To assume that your plans are the best possible outcome is almost like putting yourself on like God status.
God status, yeah. Every now and then, I think what's really good is that like I know that constantly, you know, and it humbles me constantly every day and keeps my intentions what I think is true and pure, you know. And I definitely, because whenever something goes wrong, I know that like, hang on, there's 1,000 things that I can't see right now. And that's how you get through problems and adversity. And once you start thinking greater than the problem, you're already on the right track, you know.
Yeah.
That's how you get 100%. Over it.
Yes. So, Mr. Alex, that technically wraps up the main questions. This is the part, as you may know, because you've edited the last episodes, this is the part where I usually get out the oracle cards and the tarot cards. But I had a suggestion pop into my mental, and what I thought was the question that I was going to ask the cards is, how can other people, like, what words of advice may be helpful for people who are listening or watching this podcast to manifest successfully, basically covering whatever we may have missed. But what I did want to extend, because I haven't seen you in person in a while, and also I haven't done this for you in a while, I wanted to ask you if there was anything that you had a question for Spirit about. We can answer with the tarot cards and oracle decks.
Oh, I don't know. They've put me on the spot.
Where's your chair? Nah,
I don't know. Nah, I don't really feel. I don't know. Nah. I literally feel like usually I would have something, but like I feel like there's everything that we've talked about, there's nothing
on camera in front of thousands of people.
I feel like I'm in a really, really good place right now. You know, like with where I am, I've got everything that I want, and like everything that we've talked about, I feel like that has cemented everything that I know and what I believe to be true, with how like manifestation works and stuff, and yeah.
Oh, well, I think there was just one other thing that, sorry to go back to this, but it popped into my head because I know that you'll have strong opinions about this in a good way. Or even, like, obviously, no matter what you say, I approve. But, like, the main question that I know a lot of people are going to ask us, and it will come out in the tarot cards, do you believe, and you did talk about this earlier with Abby, do you believe that you can manifest a person? And I might even question, do you believe you can manifest a specific person? Obviously, Abby's manifesting a live horse, but a person is like almost a step up. You would think a horse and a person would be very different to manifest. So I'm curious to see what you would say about that.
I reckon it's no different. I reckon 100%. And like you talk about like soulmates, like, you know, people can have multiple soulmates, people that are perfect for them. I think people forget how big a sea of people are. Like, you know, there is so many people in this world that you can't even imagine, you know. And I think being in the Navy and having all, like, just in Australia, people from all over Australia on one boat, it is the most humbling experience, because you're just like, there are so many people in the world, oh my gosh, like, you know what I mean? And I feel like there is multiple people that are perfectly suited for everyone, but it's all about who does walk into your life at the perfect time when you are receptive to that person and how amazing they are, you know what I mean? And that, I definitely believe you can manifest a person, you know? Yeah, 100%.
Sure. I think the key point of that you kind of were saying as well is like, you got to be open to it. Like, you have to, it's one thing to daydream, fantasize, imagine. Like, you also have to be open to letting these things, these people into your life that you are manifesting as well. So I think that does come with meeting the universe halfway. I know I get asked that question a lot personally. Like, people are always asking me, can you manifest specific people? And for me personally, I have manifested every soulmate that I've ever had in my life, whether that's Kirk, whether that was like my ex, because even though it ended, like, they served a purpose, 100%. Yeah. I had to hit that point in order to be the beautiful, blossoming person that I am today. Like, my friends, family, like, I literally manifested all of you guys as siblings. Like, I imagined having you, and I manifested Sinead because I had two brothers, and then I was like, please, Lord, give me a sister. Got Sinead. Like, I've manifested a lot of people in my life, but I think manifesting a specific person can sometimes be a fault, because that comes down to your ego again, and like, you assuming that this person is best for you. So I don't mean to deny anybody's like inner intuitive wisdom, but you could be limiting yourself by looking at someone on face value and going, they're my dream person, I'm only going to manifest them, and then subsequently miss out on 5 other people who are perfect for you. You just got to turn around and see them.
Definitely. I feel like that's like, that perception and being open and surrendering all ties in perfectly. Like, you know what I mean? You have to not put people on pedestals, let them come and go into your life, and like, make your own decision. Like, you know, how do you feel when that person's around? And another thing is, don't be stubborn with who you are right now. 2 years later, you're going to be a completely different person. You know what I mean? Like, so who you think you deserve right now could be completely different. And if you're being very specific, like, this person must like Star Wars, like, you know, I think, like, you know, that's a bit too specific.
Or only the Clone Wars.
They need to only, like, they must like Taekwondo and UFC, like, you know what I mean? Like
exclusively, not MMA.
If you're looking for someone that's caring and loving, then like, in that regard, more attributes and personality, then yeah, I believe so. But if you're going to be stubborn and say, nope, if she don't like Star Wars, there's the door. That's not how it works.
You're a lovely Sheila, but...
Hey, listen, I love how you're caring and stuff, but, you know, because you don't watch anything Marvel, get out of my life. You're not the one for me.
Literally, you could really stitch yourself up that way, I feel. And that's not the nature of life. The nature of life is to gain experiences. If you're only set on having one experience, then you're limiting yourself so
I want a
much.
copy and paste of me so we can sit down and watch Marvel all night. Yeah, I mean, so I can play Battlefield and verse me.
Yes, verse myself. This isn't Make-A-Wish Foundation. Like, goodness, we want to thrive here, not just survive. Anyway, I'm going to ask Spirit then if there's anything else that we've missed. We'll see what the cards have to say. I'm using a deck, now that I know that this camera's still working. I'm using a deck called Iris Oracle by Tarot Stack. I do have an affiliate link in the description. Tarot Stack is an independent company. I'm going to give them a quick little shout out. who supports independent artists. So they're very much based on promoting artists who otherwise wouldn't have a platform to be able to get their work out. You'll recognize some of their decks because other tarot readers work with them, but all of these tarot decks are created by independent artists, so the money goes straight back to them and supporting them in what they do best. So let us see if we've missed anything when it comes to... Oh, straight up, a card just fell out. Oh no, I feel like my tongue is getting twisted. What have I missed? Fire Mother, holy heck. I'll show you, Mr. Alex. So this card is key. I'm actually shooketh that I didn't think of it myself. This card is all about energy. Fire Mother is this idea of bringing your energy into harmony and balance through its complexity, if that makes sense. It's not about looking at a situation as, which kind of contradicts a lot of what we were saying, but it's not about looking at a situation as simply this. And I guess it comes back to that idea of, I only want this, I only want that, because that's all I can visualize. It's about understanding that your energy is abundant and complex and allowing that to be an opportunity of creation. Fire Mother is honestly like this phoenix energy in this card that just like rises from the ashes. This idea that you are limitless as long as you allow yourself to be in that fruitful state, that creative state. So it's interesting. It all starts with conception is what that card is saying. Staying open-minded and being open to what may come your way. It all starts with conception.
Wow.
This makes me think of Inception though. The movie.
That's so cool though. That's so cool.
Is there anything else I've missed, Spirit? We also have fear that the light will bring judgment. Wow. Do not compare yourself to others and other people's experiences, especially their own fears or judgment. This card is literally saying, don't let what you see stand in your way. You can see that with like all the eyes. There's so many eyes on this card. This person is so afraid of what other people will see once the light is on. They feel like people are going to judge them based on their actions or their motivations. So a key part of manifesting is to not let other people's perceptions, limitations, experiences stand in your way. And that also comes down to other people's fears. That also comes down to that saying that I've said so many times on this channel, that comparison is the thief of joy. You can look to others for inspiration, but seeking your own experiences based on what they've been through immediately limits you in your abundance. So a helpful side there is to not let other people's fear, perceptions, or experiences stand in your way. And this is powerful. This is exactly what we were talking about. Pay attention to the curveballs with repopulation. This card says if life gives you an empty core, or in this sense an empty apple where it's literally just a core, have faith that something more fruitful will come. Pay attention to the fact that there's no nutrients there. There's no way that you can sustain your vessel off an empty fruit, and understand that that fruitless situation is leading to something more fruitful. And lastly, we have ungrateful daughter and earthly mother reverse. So it is all about what you can perceive yourself to have with this card. This card is saying that technically you should see manifestation as an ongoing game, I guess, with the universe, where they give you an opportunity that isn't limited. Like once you've hit that checkpoint, it's not a destination, it's like another checkpoint to something bigger. So this card is saying that once you get that thing that you've been manifesting, try not to see it as the be-all end-all, like I'm happy now if I die. It's good to have that mentality, but it's also something that can stop you again from continuing your journey and allowing you to get more. So that card is just encouraging you to be open once you've hit that point where you do feel like you have what you've wanted, to allow yourself to have more. And that's this idea of living in the moment, being present, having that Wheel of Fortune moment upright after you've been through your tower, where you feel like suddenly you're this yes person, an opportunity just swings your way, everything you touch turns to gold. It's that idea of once you're actually helpfully co-creating with the universe, you're unstoppable because you're out here saying yes, yes, yes. So that's it really from Spirit when it comes to manifestation.
So cool. And validating, especially for where I am. It took me so hard to get here, and now, like, you know, I've noticed that, oh yeah, here I am, it's like a little rest stop, and then I've been resting a little bit too much, like, you know, and then that's why I've kicked into like making songs and dropped that that new song there, and like, yeah, getting back into the swing of grinding and working hard for what you want, you know, even if like everything is amazing, you know.
And speaking of your new song, I do want to link it down below because it is just a vibration riser. I don't know if it's just because it's repping the city that we're from, but I love the song. And we were talking about it yesterday with Mum and the kids. Like, this is a really good song to like get you hyped. So, and it shares a little bit more about where Alex and I are from and what our culture is like, I guess, the mixed culture of Cairns. So.
Yeah, and this what the music scene's like here, there.
Yeah, 100%. You'll get a good taste of local talent there in that song. So.
Ah, thank you, Rainey. Stop it.
There's only... Careful now, their head's getting a bit big.
Careful, I'm finding it hard to humble myself. Megamind over here.
Yeah, go. There was just one other message before we go. Spirit wants to remind us that another thing to remember with manifesting is trust. Left out with the wolves is reminding us that you're never alone. Always ask for help, whether that's in your 3D world with your loved ones, your spiritual world with your loved ones. You're never left out to the wolves. You always have someone there supporting you and helping you, and manifesting is no different. Just because it's not you, you know, in the worst of times, maybe you're completely content with your life, you just want more, it's still an opportunity to connect with your spiritual team and to ask for that support. You're never alone. And that's all I have. Is there anything else you want to add, Mr. Alex?
No, I've just been writing stuff down, if people have been seeing me do that, because like a lot of this is actually really helpful to me. So I've been writing stuff down, like fire mother, checkpoint, relax, trust, look out, universe. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's the point of this segment, so I'm glad. Awesome. Well, we'll wrap it up then. I want to thank my wonderful guest. I was about to say beautiful. I can call you beautiful, but you're handsome. I want to thank my strongest man in Wodonga. Thank you so much, Mr. Alex, Mr. Digital, for joining me today. I'm so grateful that you guys can actually meet Alex as well, because he's had a huge impact on the Hermit Tarot for a long period of time. I was living with Alex when a lot of this really took off, especially Patreon. So Alex has had a massive contribution to this whole thing in the background. So it's awesome to actually bring you in to the light and reveal you to everyone. So thank you so much, Mr. Alex. And if you want to find Alex's stuff, he's linked down below at Xander Digital. He's very creative and does a heck of a lot, so his link tree's down below. If you want to find Spirit Talks on any podcast websites, that will also be linked down below. You can find us on Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts. There's also Apple Music and something else that I can't think of on the top of my head. Deezer. Yes. Thank you so much for watching us. We shall see you soon, and bye.